Welcome to OSINT and Hacking News. I'm Gianluca, and visit my website www.osintinvestigate.com for more information regarding my services. Today, we investigate a cyber attack that puts one of the world's largest investment firms at the center of a much wider campaign targeting the financial sector. The company is Apollo Global Management. On August 21, 2026, Apollo confirmed that hackers had gained unauthorized access to some of its cloud platforms during a 5-day period, from July 6 through July 10. The incident was not initially presented as a classic ransomware attack. Instead, investigators are looking at something much more familiar and potentially more dangerous: social engineering. According to Apollo's disclosure, the attackers obtained access to cloud systems and potentially compromised sensitive personal information, including names, dates of birth, contact information, home addresses, and social security numbers. Apollo said it has not found evidence that the information has been publicly released or used for identity theft or fraud. The company has notified law enforcement and brought in external cybersecurity and forensic specialists. But this is where the story becomes bigger than Apollo. Earlier in August, Reuters reported that hackers had targeted dozens of major financial institutions and businesses using malicious websites designed to steal employee credentials. Apollo was among the companies targeted, alongside names such as Blackstone, Bridgewater Associates, Bain Capital, KKR, and others. The attackers were not necessarily looking for an exotic zero-day vulnerability. They were looking for people, phone calls, impersonation, fake login pages, stolen passwords, temporary authentication codes. A human being becomes the attack surface, and that changes the investigation completely. When we think about hacking, we often imagine malware, command lines, and sophisticated exploits. But modern cybercrime can begin with a telephone conversation. An attacker impersonates technical support. A convincing story creates urgency. An employee is instructed to verify an account or resolve a supposed security problem. One click later, credentials may be in the hands of an attacker. The result can be access to cloud infrastructure containing enormous amounts of corporate and personal information. According to Cyberscoop, Apollo determined on August 12 that personal data had been compromised. The company has not disclosed how many individuals were affected. That number is important. And for now, it remains unknown. There is another crucial detail. Apollo has not publicly identified the threat actor responsible for the breach. However, the incident appears connected to a broader campaign that researchers have been tracking across the financial industry. Cyberscoop reported that Google had attributed the wider campaign to BlackFile, a threat group associated with the cybercrime ecosystem known as the COM. That attribution should be treated carefully. In OSINT investigations, attribution is never simply a name attached to an attack. Infrastructure can be reused, domains can be copied, threat actors can impersonate other groups, and criminal ecosystems can overlap. So the real question is not simply who hacked Apollo. The more important questions are: how did the attackers gain access? What accounts were compromised? What systems could those accounts reach? How long did the attackers remain inside? What information did they access? And perhaps most importantly, was Apollo the final target, or simply one victim in a much larger operation? Reuters reported that attackers had created dozens of malicious websites targeting employees at major private equity firms and financial companies. The scale suggests that this was not an isolated incident. For investigators, these websites can become digital fingerprints. Domains, registration data, hosting infrastructure, TLS certificates, IP addresses, page templates, redirects, timestamps, small technical details that, when connected, can reveal relationships between apparently unrelated attacks. That is where OSINT becomes powerful. The objective is not to speculate, it is to reconstruct. Apollo says its investigation is ongoing. At this stage, there is no public evidence that the stolen information has been published or used for fraud. But the incident demonstrates something that cybersecurity teams have been warning about for years. The strongest security system can still be undermined by a convincing human deception. And when the target is a financial institution managing enormous amounts of sensitive information, the consequences can extend far beyond one compromised account. This investigation is still developing. The evidence will continue to emerge through regulatory filings, company disclosures, threat intelligence, and forensic analysis. And as always in OSINT, we have to distinguish between what is known, what is suspected, and what remains unproven. Apollo Global Management has confirmed the breach. The attackers gained access to cloud platforms. Personal information was compromised. The investigation continues. But the full story, including who was behind the operation, how access was obtained, and exactly how much data was exposed, is still being reconstructed. And that is where our investigation ends today, not with a conclusion, but with a question. How many other financial institutions were targeted, and how many have yet to discover that they were compromised? This is OSINT and Hacking News. Follow the evidence, question the claims, and never ignore the smallest digital trace.